never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Find another.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Now that it's a Monday, we are exactly 3 weeks away from Christmas. So the kids being in school for the year, those days are winding down. And to all of you who get Christmas break at work, your working days for the year are winding down, especially considering Christmas is on a Monday this year. I know a lot of people will be at least getting Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off. But over the weekend, we gave away some state championships in the world of high school football in South Carolina. And this upcoming weekend, we'll be down to the state championships in the state of Georgia. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But first, I want to go ahead and say that yesterday, for all of you that watch college football, they announced the 4 playoff teams and all of the bowl destinations. If you have any thoughts on any of those, please feel free to let me know. I know I mentioned it in my video yesterday, how the 4 playoff teams should be Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and Texas. But don't be surprised if Alabama gets in, and they did. And the funniest part to me is the fact that people are actually surprised by it. I'm surprised that people are surprised. It's this way every year. And that's why I've said from the very beginning that a 14 playoff is a terrible idea, because college football has so many teams and not enough teams that play each other during the regular season. So honestly, really, truly, you can't ever say that the playoff is the 4 best teams, because the only way to know which teams are the 4 best teams is to have all the teams play each other, and then the ones that beat each other the most are the 4 best teams. But you don't do that. So it's all opinionated. It's all subjective. And that's why I've said from the very beginning a 14 playoff is a terrible idea, because you're letting people who watch some of the games, but not all the games, decide on who they think are either the 4 best or the 4 deserving teams, and they don't have any rules, so they can do it any way they darn well please, because there are no rules. So I'm surprised that people are surprised, but honestly, really, truly, I'm probably the least surprised this year that I have been in all the years prior. Because if Georgia wins Saturday, it's easy. The 4 playoff teams are Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and Texas. But with Georgia losing, it messed everything up, and everybody knows by now that Alabama and Nick Saban are the media darlings. If they go 8-4 but win the SEC, they're going to be in the playoffs. It shouldn't even be talked about. it shouldn't be a surprise. It's going to happen. And that's why I'm dreading the 12-team playoff next year, because the 12-team playoff next year is going to be just like the 14 playoff now. It's going to be opinionated and it's going to be subjective, and they're going to put teams in based on who their coach is, how big their fan base is, where the school is located, their history, and not what they're doing right now. And there's about 9 or 10 teams that I can mention off the top of my head that I already know are just like Alabama. If they go 9-3 or 8-4 every year, they're in the playoffs. No questions asked. So honestly, really, truly, there's only going to be 1 or 2 spots that are available most years in a 12-team playoff, and you're going to have 25 or 30 teams that are going to be battling over those 1 or 2 spots, because all the big name teams are going to be in every year as long as they go 8-4 or 9-3. And I don't know why it surprises people. It shouldn't. And I'm honestly surprised that people are surprised, because this happens every year. But this is probably, as I said a while ago, the least surprised I've been, because even though Florida State is deserving to get in because they're an undefeated Power 5 conference champion, they were not going to put them in because they lost their quarterback. And I personally don't think that's fair, because there's not a team in America who doesn't have at least one injured player. There has never been and never will be a football season go by, or baseball, basketball, any of those sports go by, where every team doesn't have at least one injury. In sports, that happens. So why do you penalize Florida State for that, but not other teams? I know why. Because it's Alabama. Had it come down to Florida State and Oregon, Florida State would get in. Had it come down to Florida State and Missouri, Florida State would get in. Had it come down to Florida State and Ole Miss, Florida State would get in. But when it comes down to Florida State and Alabama, they're going to put Alabama in. And I just do not know why that surprises people. I can't figure it out. But one of the qualifications, according to the playoff committee, is that if you've lost a key player or key players, they can overlook you. But in 2014, Ohio State's starting quarterback was hurt. They didn't overlook them. Why? Because it's Ohio State. This year, Texas right now, their best running back by far is out for the season. They didn't overlook them. Why? Because it's Texas. They're not going to overlook the big-time programs. They're going to overlook the smaller, lesser programs, and that's why Florida State got overlooked. So honestly, this is probably the least surprised I've been, and that's why I mentioned it in my video yesterday. I knew when Georgia got beat Saturday, I said, well, whether Florida State wins tonight or not, they're getting left out, because Texas is in and Alabama is in, and of course, we know the top 2 were going to get in. Let's talk about some high school football now. As far as South Carolina goes, the AA champion in the state of South Carolina, Oceanside, they beat Gray Collegiate by the score of 35-28. The single A champion, Christ Church Episcopal, they beat Johnsonville 67-21. The 5A state champion, Dutch Fork, who is an absolute powerhouse in the state of South Carolina, they defeat White Knoll 21-6. 4A state champion, West Side, they defeat South Florence 34-32. And the 3A state champion, Daniel, they defeat Camden in a classic, an instant classic. Overtime, Daniel 49, Camden 48. Now, as far as the state of Georgia goes, we are now down to the top 2 teams in each classification, because over the weekend, Milton defeats Grayson 45-35. Creekside defeats Jefferson 28-17. Woodward Academy defeats Douglas 24-21. Prince Avenue Christian all over Bryan County 49-14. Rockmart defeats Cook 34-24. Thomas County 13, Marist 7. Coffee 33, Cartersville 18. Walton 41, Camden 25. Perry 28, Stars Mill 24. Cedar Grove over Calvary Day 49-42. Bowden 35, Schley County 31. Swainsboro 24, Brooks County 17. Manchester 35, Telfair County 13. Stockbridge 45, Benedictine 31. Savannah Christian 51, Carver 26. Pierce County 35, Fitzgerald 7. Now, the state of Georgia will wrap up their high school football season this upcoming weekend. And if you live in the state of Georgia and you have Georgia Public Broadcasting or PBS, most years they carry the state championship in just about every classification. So if you're a high school football fan, whether you're a diehard fan or a casual fan, this upcoming Saturday could be your day. I have not checked the listings yet, but a lot of times they'll start at like 10 o'clock in the morning and carry a game at 10, at 1, at 4, at 7, and at 9:30. So there might be 4 or 5 games on TV this Saturday. And go ahead and look over all of the bowl games, because coming up sometime later on this week, one day this week, I'm going to discuss all the bowl games, and we'll talk about who is going where. So go ahead and get a pen out or a pencil, whichever one you prefer, and a piece of paper, because there's a lot of bowl games and there is no way you're going to remember all of them. But we will talk about it coming up sometime later on in the week. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Mariah Carey is opening her Christmas present. Inside, she finds a deed to an undeveloped plot of land that is zoned residential. Disappointed, she set the deed down and said, "I don't want a lot for Christmas." And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.